Hello, everyone. Welcome to another beautiful day on this planet. My name is Dr. Julie Tumoon, and I wanted to hop in here. Let's have a discussion about Candida. Because if you've been anywhere in the natural health world for 5 minutes, you've heard someone say, like, your problems are Candida. And let's discuss that because it's a bit of kind of erroneous advice and it's really incomplete. It's not really talking about the whole problem. And a lot of people waste a lot of their healing energy going about trying to kill Candida as a means to achieve their health and end up finding out that it's not the route to healing. So Candida is a pesky fungus. Certainly it can be a problem for a lot of people. It can show up a lot of different ways. I mean, it can be part of, gut and digestive issues. It can be part of fatigue syndromes. It can certainly show up as oral thrush that can be very, very uncomfortable and problematic. It can show up in the pelvic area. And regardless, it causes a lot of concerning symptoms. And so a lot of people think like, well, if I could just get rid of this Candida, then I could feel better. So here's the challenge. The major way that people talk about getting rid of Candida is to say, okay, so we're going to starve it out. We're going to go really low carb or zero carb even, and say, this is how we're going to get rid of Candida. So the first thing you need to know about this fungus is that it's really smart. So you try to starve it out. And the problem is that you've just ventured on a path that actually has no end. Because the reality is that when you try to starve Candida, it actually just turns around, goes dormant, or burrows deeper into your body. You're not going to end up killing it off. One of the things that we need to really learn in our healing journey is that the kill it philosophy does not work. It's been proven over and over and over again. When we go about trying to eradicate things with that really broad, I'm just going to kill it, what ends up happening is that we actually end up making more problems. One, because a lot of these organisms are really adept at survival. It's their job. And so they just adapt or go into hiding or burrow into the tissues. And the other is that we create imbalances in other places that then our body is set again with a terrain that's dysfunctional. Now, if you've heard me talk, we've talked about terrain. We've talked about the fact that the terrain of your body, as in the state of the tissues, is what is going to determine your long-term survivable health. What that means is that if your terrain is disrupted, now you can disrupt the terrain a whole lot of ways. It could just be crazy lifestyle. It could be lots of stress. It could be a diet that's stressful. It could be emotional things. It could be taking the wrong supplements. It could be taking too many supplements. Even IV nutrients can disrupt the terrain. Herbs that you don't need can disrupt the terrain. Taking things to kill off a particular species in your body can disrupt the terrain. That includes if you're taking natural substances. We're not even talking antibiotics or pharmaceutical antivirals, or pharmaceutical antifungals. If we start talking about using, high-grade essential oils to kill off things in our body, or really bitter herbs as are commonly used in gut issues and such. If they're not done in balance, you're going to disrupt the terrain, which means that now you've disrupted the terrain. So you've created a terrain that is not functional. Well, a dysfunctional terrain is hospitable to these types of issues, fungus, other bacteria, other viruses, etc. So that's one problem. Now, the other is that when you go and you starve Candida, let's just say you go that route and you're like, okay, zero carb. Now, what happens is, yes, are you going to decrease some of those symptoms? Yes, you absolutely are. And the reason is that, yes, you're creating, a lack of available food, but you're not going to get rid of them completely. And ask anyone who's ever done that diet and then had even a little bit of fruit or a little bit of carbohydrate, and they say, oh my gosh, it all came flooding back. That's the reason why. The other issue is that when you go really, really, really low carb, now you don't have glucose to fuel the pathways for energy that are prompted by thyroid at your cells. So in the process, you actually force the cells to drop into a low energy state. That's not the long-term state of health and healing. So as a consequence, you've just adapted your body to the survival mode state of living and to run on stress hormones. Now your adrenals will do that for a while, then your sympathetic nervous system will take over. The end result being that you're going to end up pushing your body into stress response mode, and it's going to stay there. And in the process, thyroid resiliency is going to go down. And so at the end of all of that, you haven't generated more resilience. You've actually generated a slower system that's running off of more stress and has less and less hormonal balance. So that doesn't work either. Now here's some other cues. So Candida likes to hang out with heavy metals. Now let's say you actually had a heavy metal problem first, and your body was like, oh, my emunctories aren't open. The emunctories are liver, kidney, lymph. They're not open. I can't use them for detox. So unfortunately, I have this load and I'm trying to deal with this load and I have no means to detoxify it. And so as a result, the body's wise. It's like, I got to deal with it somehow, right? So funny enough, in its wisdom, your body may actually propagate more Candida because the fungus can take the heavy metals into their system. And in essence, they get sequestered in Candida. Now you go and say, well, I'm going to kill off that Candida without the awareness, the fact that your emunctories aren't open, so you got no pathway for detox. And as a result, you start liberating heavy metals, which then your body pushes more Candida because it's like, wait a minute, I had this weird kind of homeostasis, and now you're disrupting my homeostasis. Do you see what I mean? You see how it can get complicated? Because you think, I've got a Candida problem. And your body's like, well, first I had a heavy metal problem. Now I have a Candida and a heavy metal problem. And you're going about one side of that without giving the whole body the attention it needs. This is why we can't pick and choose issues. This is why we can't like, oh, I'm just going to heavy metal detox. I'm just going to kill Candida. We actually have to consider the state of the entire system all at once, because if we don't, we can actually create these huge imbalances where we shove everything off to the right, off to the left. We create terrain disruptions that then our body can't sustain. And then it ends up having to do more maladaptive responses just to maintain a minimum of homeostasis. So that can happen. The same thing can be true, like you go to try to detox heavy metals and you can end up, if you don't have those emunctories open, and you get some dropping of heavy metals by using like heavy detoxifiers like chlorella, then you can actually end up putting those heavy metals into circulation. Your body goes, oh, crap, we don't have the means to detoxify them. And guess what blooms afterwards? Oh, it's the Candida, because your body said, oh, shoot, I got to have an adaptive response. So what do? First off is, don't try to starve the Candida. The thing is that you need adequate carbohydrates in order to fuel energy production at the cell and fuel thyroid resiliency. Why do I care so much about thyroid? Because you guys, if you don't have thyroid resiliency, you're going to be relying on those adrenal hormones, and you're going to create an imbalance in the system, and it's not going to be recoverable. You want thyroid hormone response to be strong at the cell. The thyroid hormone response activates the process that uses glucose for energy. That is an indisputable fact. So if you don't have sufficient carbohydrates, you're going to shut that process down. So that's number one. Number two is you need to open those emunctories, lymph, liver, kidneys. They have to be strong, vital, and functional. I will be honest, most people are not going to get there on their own. Sadly, because if the entrenched dysfunction has been 10 or 20 years long, you can't get there. You cannot go do a liver detox to heal your liver. Hands down, you can't do a kidney detox to heal your kidneys. Detox is a stressful event. You can only do adequate detox when you've actually built resiliency into the system already. So that's why so many people actually injure themselves doing those things. To move and encourage these systems to heal, some basics that you can take on is certainly eat sufficient carbohydrates. You want to focus on cooked vegetables, cooked root vegetables, good quality fruit, oftentimes cooked. You want to focus on grains that are easy to digest, white basmati rice and quinoa, corn processed with mineral lime, sorghum, those kind of things. Now, to encourage lymphatic movement, you may want a skin brush. You also may want to do conscious stretching. Stretching is a tool that can actually pump the lymph, but it also is soothing to the liver. From a Chinese medicine perspective, the liver runs the tendons and the sinews. So when we stretch, we actually encourage that. You also may want to back off any really high intense exercise, because that can actually aggravate the liver, which diminishes its detox capacity and can actually lower thyroid even more and make it even harder for your body to detox. Now, a lot of people think drink tons of water to encourage the kidneys to function. And here's where I'm going to differ with that. The reality is if you drink tons and tons of water and you're constantly overhydrated, you're actually creating another imbalance in the tissues, because your body can't maintain very easy mineral balance and can't maintain very easy electrolyte balance. And as a result, then you can actually even further skew the picture. So here's the deal. You want to drink to thirst, and you want to make sure that you're not peeing all the time. If you're having to go pee every 30 minutes, I guarantee you're drinking too much. You also only want to drink water that is room temperature or even warm. You don't want to drink ice cold. I don't care if it's 95 degrees outside. You do not want to drink ice cold. It actually shuts down those organs that are responsible for digestion because it's cold and they don't function at that temperature. Now, you also want to drink, small sips throughout the day instead of guzzling like these huge amounts. That's another huge thing, because the reality is actually if you put too much through your kidneys, you're stressing them again. You look at a lot of like in Chinese medicine, most of the doctors that taught me, I never saw them drink a glass of water. What they did do was they'd fill up their container with tea leaves in the morning, and they'd, do hot water in there, and they'd do tea where they'd keep adding hot water to those same tea leaves like 5-6 times, and they might change it in the afternoon and then do the same thing. But these weren't very big glasses, they were like 8-ounce glasses that they filled with water a few times, but always hot water, and just sipping it. They just sip, little sip, put it down, maybe another little sip, never guzzling. And on top of that, you really want to get a lot of liquid in your food. So you want to be doing soups and broths and cooked vegetables, things that actually have a lot of inherent liquid in them, because that's a better way for us to absorb that, because a lot of times then we're combining that with good electrolytes that are naturally present in the food that let us use that water in a more functional capacity. So that's another way that you support those kidneys. Now, you may also want to, you want to get you want to get a good amount of sunlight. This is the sunlight season, at least for those of us in the more northern states. And so you actually want to get sunlight exposure, not only because it helps your mitochondria shift and the natural UV frequencies are great for your eyes, but it also gives energy production and balance, and it helps with sweating, which is another great elimination technique, and the warmth actually helps relax those tissues. And you want to have more downtime, so you actually want to have unobligated time. So the liver is the organ of action. So when we are constantly busy, constantly with a list, constantly with the next thing to do, constantly aggravated, right now there's a lot of frustration in the world. That is really upping the ante for the liver. So you want to have enough time that you're unobligated so the liver can actually feel relaxed. That's going to encourage detoxification as well. Now, you want to have a nutrient-dense diet as well. In order to adequately detox, you need so many nutrients, you guys, and getting them by shoving supplements in your mouth isn't always going to be the best, because actually you can create a lot of imbalance that way. So you want to be having, lots of great broths for soup for the mineral density. You want to have lots of cooked vegetables and greens for the mineral density. You want to be eating good quality fats, no polyunsaturated fats. You want to be eating coconut oil. You want to be eating butter. You want to be eating, if grass-fed meats and wild-caught fish and good quality shellfish. And you want to be doing fresh fruits. You want to be doing these things. You want to be doing high calcium foods. For a lot of people, that does mean doing really good quality dairy, bone broths, those kind of things, because you need those nutrients. And when they come from food, our body has a much easier time using them. You should not be trying to get all your nutrients via pills and just kind of hoping your diet does the rest. You really need to optimize your diet. Sorry for all the noise in the background. These things will help encourage those organs. Now, how does that relate to the Candida? Well, it's huge, because again, we're talking about a gut, and we're talking about the fact that the way you're going to clear Candida is to restore balance to the terrain. You're never going to kill it. the way we restore balance to the terrain is also to make sure the emunctories are able to function so your body can remove toxicity so it can actually clear it, which then in terms of heavy metals will actually then allow for your body to not try to sequester it and candida as an option. Now, as a last aside, if you're a woman with hormonal imbalance and you've been thinking, let me take some progesterone, which I'm not opposed to in the right circumstances, however, you need to know that candida will also eat up progesterone. So if you have not dealt with the terrain issues and you start just taking progesterone, you may find either that you sit there going, where's the big bang? Where's the awesome effect? Where's like the, wow, this was so fun? Or you may actually feel worse. And this is something else. This is why you can't just throw hormones at a problem, because the reality is that, again, if your terrain is disrupted, thus allowing for dysfunctional things to propagate because you don't have the energy in the emunctories in order to do adequate balance and detoxification, and your organ systems are tired, and your cell systems are tired, then throwing a hormone on top of that may actually make the whole problem worse, which is why I'm not an advocate of just throwing hormones at a problem until you've actually assessed and dealt with the entire picture. So hopefully this gives you a perspective on candida. I know that there's a lot of people out there just advocating, just kill it, kill it, kill it. And I can tell you guys, after years and years in medicine, I can tell you without a doubt, it does not work. And you actually can make the problem worse, and you're really going to deplete your chi. And the whole purpose in healing is to capture our vitality, to capture our life force. Excuse me. To cultivate a terrain that is resilient, that reflects the bounty and magic and amazingness of our amazing body. And we cannot do that if we're trying to kill everything, if we're trying to control everything, if we're just trying to starve everything. Those are not the words we use in association with vitality. So with candida, it's no different. And it can heal, but for most people, it's going to take a really comprehensive plan that aligns with what their body's actually doing. And so if you're ready for that step, set up a call, because we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what it looks like and where your body's really stuck and maybe why you haven't been shifting. Because for everybody, it's a slightly different story. And until you really figure out like where that emphasis is for you, a lot of times we're going to flounder for a really long time. So blessings, guys. Thanks for hanging out. If you have questions, post them in the chat. Bye-bye.